Hello again everyone and welcome back to the Underground. This is the Intel update for July 14th through the 20th, 2024, so let's get right to it. As many of you know, it has been quite a busy week, so let's go ahead and start with the event that everyone's talking about, and that is the attempted assassination of President Trump at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm not going to get into this too much. As you guys probably know, I already dropped about an hour's worth of after-action review on this. I have another one that I'm working on as well to compile some of the notes, but really I just want to hit the highlights for today. So there are a lot of knowns and there are a lot of unknowns. So here's what we know. So far we know that a gunman was able to gain access to key terrain, an elevated vantage point on top of a building, adjacent to where Trump was giving a speech at one of his rallies in Butler, Pennsylvania. The gunman was able to fire several shots. The total number of shots is up for debate, but most sources seem to agree that it was 4 shots. However, this may change as time goes on. In any case, as the shooter was aiming for Donald Trump standing behind the podium, several of these rounds missed Trump and hit people in the crowd. So at least one fatality resulted from that, and a couple of others were wounded. So again, Trump himself was hit in the right ear, as we all know, and the shooter was engaged and stopped by a Secret Service CAT team, sniper team. So following the incident, we do know that the shooter was identified as Thomas Matthew Crooks. However, that's pretty much all we know with any certainty at the moment. As many of you know who have been following this story day by day since it happened a week ago, every single day there has been some new crazy detail come out of this story. So who knows, in another day, another week, month, year, we may find even more details that contradict some of these initial data points. As far as the unknowns go, the intelligence gaps, the things that we are uncertain of, some of the more important details, I should guess, really lie with how was this shooter able to gain access to this facility? How was he able to use all of the equipment that he is alleged to have used? And how did this incident occur when it seems like every day that comes out, more and more details show that, authorities, law enforcement in general, were aware of this guy for, it looks like, several hours beforehand. So again, these are unknowns. We don't have any solid answers to these. However, questions are being asked. A lot of the failures that lead up to this was not just one failure, but in many cases, hundreds of failures led up to this incident being almost successful. So there's that. Some more questionable details lie with the question of, was this incompetence on the part of authorities, mostly the Secret Service, or was this an instance of malice, the U.S. Secret Service intentionally neglecting their role or intentionally setting things up so that the shooter had the best possible chance for success? That is an unknown at this moment. I know everyone's thinking it because basically anybody with any sort of very loose tactical experience can tell you that it's going to be a very hard sell to say that some of these details were purely incompetence, because virtually no one on the earth would be this incompetent. One of the bigger stories that kind of is sort of contentious is the director of the U.S. Secret Service, Director Cheadle, stating that the reason that snipers were not on the roof that the shooter was on is because it was too steep, and that the sloped roof, the pitch of the roof provided a hazard for someone falling off, so they did not occupy that position. Anyone can tell that this is a blatant lie. No one is that incompetent. So when you see little details like this, someone trying to sell an idea as being incompetence, when in actuality it's something more severe, that's a huge indicator. My own personal opinion is that, well, if someone is going to try to push the idea that, oh, I'm just so incompetent at my job, I'm such a diversity hire at my job, I'm so awful at what I do, please fire me, sort of thing. If that narrative is less bad than the truth, then you have to wonder what the truth is. because so far it's really looking like, this is just not a good situation all around. Now, again, I'm sure people who are vastly more qualified than me will talk about this until the end of time. However, looking forward, we have to sort of understand where we're at. You can say, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I will just share this sentiment for those who may choose to believe it or not. I don't know. There seems to be a sentiment throughout big government, throughout the Republican Party, even throughout the Democratic Party for sure, throughout the sort of politically left institutions, of disappointment and crestfallenness, and there's this sort of air of, well, something didn't go to plan. You know what I mean? Now, again, I'm sure that there will be a lot of debate around this over the years, but a lot of people are saying that, well, the reason that the RNC was the Republican National Convention was such kind of a weird atmosphere is because Donald Trump wasn't expected to be there. The introduction for it was, some people argue that it was really indicative of something that another candidate may have been more in favor of, say perhaps Nikki Haley. And people are drawing, lines between that and the fact that she took so long to drop out of the race, even though she was doing so horribly. I don't know how accurate any of this is, but I did want to share it because there definitely seems to be something up with this, and it's not just the sort of atmosphere of realizing how serious this is. Traditionally, a few years ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, you might say, all right, looking more strategically, Trump almost gets killed, and this incident would traditionally, I think, would result in a cooling of tensions, because it would encourage all of his political rivals to kind of think about their words a little bit more. They would take a step back, realize, okay, this is a lot more serious than we thought. This is not just rhetoric. That's sort of an argument that would have held weight in the past. I don't necessarily know if it holds this much weight in the future, because we're not exactly seeing that. We're seeing people being disappointed that the attack didn't work. We're seeing people glorify the shooter himself. We're seeing a lot of this, and if anything, we're seeing silence from a lot of big government kind of organizations and things like that. So I don't see a cooling of tensions. On the other hand, I don't necessarily see a straight up escalation. It just seems like a lot of people are in, plan B mode. And that sort of, maybe I'm just reading this all wrong, I don't know, but it seems to me like a lot of institutional strategic plan Bs are being put in place. Now, this could be not necessarily because anyone had prior knowledge of this attack, right? This could be because, major Democratic donors say, well, dang it, he's almost achieved martyrdom status, and now there's no way that he'll lose this election, so we're going to have to switch into plan B. I don't know, man. That's kind of a, that would maybe be true in the past. I don't know if that's accurate today. It just seems like there's a lot more strategic moving around than, I think that we just don't seem to be getting the full story, is what I'm trying to say. In any case, I know there's a lot of disorganized thoughts on this already, so I'll move on. But really moving forward for most Americans, this really does kind of highlight the fact that you are on your own. Even if you're at an event where the best of the best of the best are providing security, that's not good enough anymore. And I don't care what anyone says. You, the average citizen out there, are absolutely justified in pumping up your risk assessment level and assuming less risk, because you don't necessarily want to rely on some of these institutions anymore. Right now, the U.S. Secret Service has given, an entire planet the reason and the justification to up their threat assessment a little bit with regards to the risk that someone might be taking. In years past, it would be almost heresy, right, to suggest you might be on your own at a rally where there's 15 agencies providing security. Nowadays, it's like, look, we're not going to go off the deep end. We're not going to, you know, absolutely be at, threat level midnight forever, but we also need to realize where we're at. And risk assessment is one of those things that we probably should put a little bit more time and effort into, considering that the situation seems to be getting a little bit more serious. So, again, this really just highlights you need to be prepared, you need to understand where we're at, and moving forward, it would be probably a good idea to be a little bit more, observant of things. So, again, a lot of lessons are going to be learned from this. I've already gotten a whole hour's worth of just, me sort of going through my own lessons learned from an information perspective, but I'm already working on some more stuff that might be helpful for the average person out there. Right now, there's a lot of talk, but when it comes to the average taxpayer out there, this incident doesn't really highlight a lot of like everyday impacting things. This is more of a strategic thing of, okay, this incident shows every American where we're at now, how the situation is. So, again, I think that's probably all the thoughts I've got on that. So let's go ahead and move on to another major incident which occurred a couple of days ago, which is the CrowdStrike IT outage. Now, for those of you who are unaware of this, this did not get as much press coverage as I thought it would, considering how serious this outage is. Essentially, CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity firm which provides, security patches and updates and things like that for Microsoft and for Windows, they pushed out a bad update, and it basically resulted in the blue screen of death for a lot of customers. Some reports, I don't know how accurate this is, but I have seen this number a couple of times from some cybersecurity experts. Some people say that it may have been as many as 20% of all the computers on planet Earth were affected by this. So, and we can see that already, even, dubious statistics aside, we can already see that this is this is up there. This is one of the biggest security IT issues we've ever seen, right? This makes, this is on sort of like Y2K level with regards to the potential outage, except for the fact that this actually did occur. This really did brick a lot of computers around the planet for a while. I think that a lot of citizens probably didn't care or notice about this because their install of Windows wasn't affected. This was mostly at the enterprise level, so businesses, people who rely on servers and things like that for various Windows products at more of the enterprise level, not so much at the consumer level. So, for instance, none of my laptops or systems here failed. I don't know of anybody who did, except for businesses which used some of these higher level functions and products from Microsoft. So, really, we're talking the damage from this and the fallout from this is huge. It is going to be very, very, very important to follow this incident as it goes forward, and I am absolutely certain that heads are going to roll because of this. This is very, very serious. The solution has been provided. However, the solution is essentially to boot into recovery mode and delete a file or two, and reboot enough times to where it will sort of work its way out. That's the hot fix right now for it, is what it seems like. But in terms of the services affected, everything was affected. So we've got 911 call centers going down all around the country. 3 major airlines grounded their flights. They had to issue a nationwide ground stop because of this issue. Air traffic controllers were affected in some places. Some hospitals are still down. Now, there's a couple of hospitals in my area, well, not in my area, but a few hours away from me that are still down. They've canceled all elective procedures, and they're running off of basically their wartime standard in the ER, and that's it. That's all they've got because all their computers are bricked. But yeah, everybody's down. Like, I've got a couple of UPS packages that are not going to be delivered for a week because UPS is down. Amazon, I think, is okay, but again, Amazon uses third-party vendors, so that's one of those little details here that is often lost. So a lot of businesses are finding out that they may not They may not be reliant on a particular, they may be okay themselves, but they don't know what other systems off-site they're reliant on. So again, a lot of people were saying, banking was affected. Well, in some cases, banking was affected, but not in the way that you might think. So customers were able to get their funds out. However, some banks which use strange systems, were down, right? They weren't able to provide customer data on things. Now, ACH transfers, fine. ATMs, fine. But the systems that make these things work were affected in some cases. So again, this cybersecurity incident is so widespread. I would be here for like an hour and a half listing all the things that were affected that we know about. Think about all the things we don't know about that, like government systems are trying to keep on the down low because of how serious this is. And the reason that I say heads are going to roll because of this is that time and time again, we are reassured by the cybersecurity industry that one company or one guy at one company cannot push one line of code out and crash the planet. And yet this happens quite a lot. If we remember, CrowdStrike was also at the center of the Russiagate scandal a few years ago. I thought that name, it took me a while to put that together, but I thought that name sounded familiar. Yeah, these guys were the ones who claimed that Russia hacked the DNC a few years ago. They were a critical part of the Russiagate scandal. So again, not a good look for CrowdStrike. This may not have been malicious, okay? This was, the company has stated this is not a cyber attack. This is something they did. They pushed out some code that was bad. There you go. And it was due to, I think it was due to like a memory incident, memory failure or something like that. So again, some of the most basic computing things that are taught at very low levels are how this crashed the planet, basically. But again, if one guy can do this, it may not have been a cyber attack, but what's cheaper than doing a cyber attack? We put so many billions, hundreds of billions of dollars into protecting cybersecurity infrastructure, and yet the guy who pushed the code out gets a suitcase full of money from some malign actor. He does it intentionally, says it's an accident. So anyway, forensic analysis is going to be done, and whoever's on the team that did this, if it was one guy or if it was one team, they're going to get investigated very heavily, or at least they should, to make sure they didn't get a mysterious deposit in their account overnight. Something to keep in mind is this sort of, cyber events are going to happen. This sort of thing is exactly what you would expect to see if World War III broke out, and this is exactly what I was looking for after the Trump assassination attempt. This sort of thing. Imagine for a moment if this CrowdStrike outage happened at the exact same time as the Donald Trump assassination attempt. Now imagine if it had happened at the exact same time as the Colonial Pipeline cyber attack. Do you see where we're going with this? This is not good, and so much of our infrastructure is built on very, very, very fragile systems that it would do very well to start considering and start going through the analysis of figuring out, okay, well, what tech vulnerabilities do I have? Because these kinds of incidents definitely highlight that. So yeah, I think I've talked enough on that. Let's move on to the incident in Massachusetts. So there's been kind of a hot situation in Nantucket where in which about a week ago there was a storm that came through and took out one of the wind turbines in the wind farm out there. That wind farm has been very contentious by itself over the past few years because, of course, wind farms are nuisances, right? They cause a lot of problems with the fishing industry. And in this case, one of the wind turbines had a catastrophic failure, basically just imploded on itself. We all know how these incidents kind of occur due to, storm damage. And pieces over the past week, it occurred a week ago, but it's taken almost a week now for the debris to start washing ashore. So there's foam pieces, fiberglass pieces. The Coast Guard has issued a notice saying this is, a hazard area now. People are complaining. There's kind of a local uproar over this because there's a little bit of a scandal in which the energy company doesn't want to take any responsibility for it. Local politicians are bought and paid for, so it's It's a whole thing down there, but basically most of the beaches in Nantucket on the south side of the island are closed due to this debris. So again, another reminder of how fragile infrastructure really is, and how a lot of these, as we're starting to find out in the sort of mainstream culture, a lot of these clean energy things really aren't so. And especially when it comes to wind farms. So I'm sure this will probably be a hot button issue in the region for a while. But I don't have any reservations that anything will be done about it substantially. So let's move on to the southwestern region, and I just briefly wanted to touch on some of the scandal surrounding the Hurricane Beryl response. So, as we know, Hurricane Beryl rolled through the region last week and caused widespread power outages throughout the Galveston, Houston area. And there has been a lot of scandal since then. It's not there have been a lot of security incidences involving linemen. So a lot of the out-of-state linemen have reported being attacked by citizens as they try to like go to work and restore power in these areas. So there have been a lot. I haven't been able to nail down a lot of these, but a lot of videos on TikTok, a lot of linemen have been getting on and talking about some of the stuff they've dealt with. Hard to verify. There was a story that some citizens were, good Samaritans, right? And they were trying, it gave out some water bottles to some guys, and one of the water bottles had fentanyl in it, and the lineman was hospitalized. That's the story. I haven't been able to verify that. I don't know. There are cases of linemen being attacked or attacking each other in some cases. It's just kind of a mess down there. Well over, I think, 14,000 or so linemen have been dispatched to the region to kind of get power back online. That's a lot of people. So, it's hard to say how things are working out. But a lot of linemen have reported that citizens are trying to tamper with electrical equipment, trying to turn their own power back on, and it's very dangerous, like exceptionally dangerous. So, normally you don't normally see this kind of thing happen. Usually, things like utility worker people who are doing the right thing, trying to like get the power back on. You don't tend to see locals try to attack them. However, that's happening in Houston, and it seems to be, I don't know if it's one of these like new normal things, but definitely seems to be a consideration moving forward. We already found out over the riots of the past couple of years that firemen have already been, kind of attacked. You would think that'd be a protected career field, largely apolitical, dudes trying to put out fires, but, the risks to first responders that are not like affiliated with the police, that are like purely in a non-politically charged career field, are definitely getting attacked now. It's like, man, so something to keep in mind, something to consider. Another reminder to definitely start investing, no matter where you're at in this country. Definitely start investing in alternative power generation. I myself have tried to do that over the past year or two. The vulnerabilities to the critical infrastructure in my local area are pretty bad. So even for people who don't live in areas where their electrical grid is not super great, it would probably be a good idea to kind of definitely invest in solar generators, solar batteries, things like that. Just as I've talked about quite a bit before with regards to power generation in an emergency. You might use it, get a lot more use out of it than you previously thought. So let's go ahead and wrap things up with the Red Sea area, and this is going to be probably a point of contention, probably even before this video goes out. I guarantee something's going to develop. So I just wanted to focus on the merchant vessel Chios Lion and point out that the conflict in the Red Sea in the Gulf of Aden has intensified over the past few days. Again, we have seen the Houthis increase their targeting of commercial shipping, and they have increasingly relied on USVs, or unmanned surface vessels, to attack commercial shipping. One of the bigger ones that they actually published a propaganda video for was a merchant vessel Chios Lion, which was a tanker that they slammed a remote control vessel into, and exploded right there against the hull. So I've seen several reports saying that there's a couple of 100-kilometer long oil slick from this vessel. I don't know if it's sunk yet, but looking at the video, it's hard to imagine that vessel continuing on. Now, granted, when it comes to vessels, anyone who's done any sort of naval doctrine, naval warfare, like studying, especially out in the Pacific, you know that vessels, even non-warships, can withstand a lot of damage before sinking. So just looking at a video, it's kind of, even though it looks bad, it's really hard to say this is going to result in the vessel sinking anyway. There were a couple of other vessels that were attacked as well. I haven't had time to sit down and kind of pinpoint which one was which, so I'll do more of that next week. But once again, even me looking at this sort of things, these are now OBE, or overcome by events, because a couple of days ago, Yemen, the Houthis were able to successfully launch a cruise missile drone sort of thing. We'll just call it a drone because of its range. They were able to launch one of their devices, fly it up the Red Sea, across Egypt, into the Med, and then back into Israel, and successfully strike a target in Tel Aviv. Again, these long-range drones that the Yemenis have developed, these are they're almost identical to what the Iranians have, because, again, the Houthis are, of course, getting Iranian support militarily. So this is a big deal, because that munition was able to fly about 1,500 miles, and land in a city. And it landed, just so happened to be, in Tel Aviv, and a couple hundred meters away from the U.S. consulate there. So, the U.S. has got a lot of diplomatic stations in Tel Aviv, so it's not just the one site as far as I know, but it's not, I don't know how likely it is for the Houthis to aim specifically and hit a single building from 1,500 miles away. So I don't think I think they were just trying to go for the city. Anything they could hit in the city is good enough for the Houthis. But in any case, it highlights that the United States missed it. All of the Aegis missile system defense that we have in the Red Sea and in the region did not shoot it down, did not pick it up. And it was able to get through Israeli defenses as well. So, it's one of those things where it's kind of an escalation. I would be willing to bet that Israel is probably going to respond to that. The Houthis have tried several times, and they've actually struck some targets in Israel with these long-range drones, but they haven't done anything as bold as hit Tel Aviv yet. So Israel, to save face, is going to have to do something. So they'll probably hit some targets in Hodeidah or something like that. Who knows? It's really hard to tell. We'll probably know more by the time this video comes out, because this takes many hours to upload. But yeah, not super great for U.S. forces in the region. There's always the chance for the United States to accidentally be brought into the conflict more directly. This incident resulted in, I haven't been able to verify with any super great confidence that Netanyahu's speech or visit to the United States and speech before Congress has been delayed. I would be willing to bet that's probably true. It makes sense for him to delay his actions if Israel is going to initiate some kind of military response, and they're probably going to have to, because that strike was too on the nose for Israel or really any nation to just kind of let that go. So anyway, again, tensions in the Middle East are not super great right now, especially considering that we've got these untold domestic problems in the United States. It's kind of a rough time right now, going into this election season. Let's switch gears for a bit and talk about the South China Sea. Again, just very roughly touching on it. The Chinese drills in the region, South China Sea, the East China Sea, really just the Pacific at large. These drills have continued, and they've basically remained par for the course for what China's done in the past. China's made some new records. They've gone a long way with their vessels. They've, again, had a task force off the coast of Alaska for a while, and they have achieved some new records with regards to the number of aircraft in the Taiwan Strait within 24 hours, so that's been kind of a new thing for them to do. But for now, over the past 4 or 5 days now, most of the traffic in terms of the aircraft incursions in the Taiwan Strait have kind of returned to the normal baseline of 1 to 2 dozen per day. So again, the risk of China invading Taiwan is fairly low at the moment. However, again, I think that we're hanging too much. Sometimes we're hanging too much sort of tension on whether or not China's going to invade Taiwan or not. That's not the only thing China can do. China can do a lot of things. They can mess with the Philippines down in the Scarborough Shoal. They can do a lot of things. So, really, in terms of keeping an eye on China, it's not just, I know I get messages like this all the time, is China going to invade Taiwan today? I don't know, but it's generally speaking probably not. However, just because a Taiwan invasion may not be imminent within the next few weeks or so, doesn't mean that China can't do something else. So again, they could, do some diplomacy by naval forces in the region, and they're definitely doing that. So they can mess with Kinmen Island quite a bit. They can mess with a few other islands in the Taiwan Strait, and generally cause more diplomatic pressure for the United States, which is really kind of struggling right now. Fear not, all the sort of infighting and little civil war going on within the Democratic Party right now is absolutely noted by China, and they know that the White House is probably distracted as well. So, it would be a really good time for China to poke. Like I mentioned in the hot wash that I just dropped a few days ago, or yesterday. It would be a great time for Russia and for China to just needle us like they love to do. So expect some of that over the next couple of weeks, just a heightened level of that, and it's going to slowly increase as time goes on up until the election. But really, I'm not seeing anything major. Granted, I'm no East Asia analyst, but it seems like most of the Chinese military activity in the South China Sea has returned to a somewhat increased baseline for the time being. So let's wrap things up today by talking about the intercepted GhostNet reports. Again, I mentioned quite a lot about the GhostNet this week. We had a snap drill. We had a regular meeting. I talked a lot about the reports that I got during the whole Trump sort of shooting incident last Saturday. So this week was just a normal week, and it was not good for solar weather, so I wasn't able to pick up too much from my local position. I saw a lot of you out there, but not a whole lot that I was able to pick up. And interestingly enough, a couple of the SDRs that I normally use to monitor things beyond what my own local antenna can hear, they were having issues, so I wasn't able to kind of get as much traffic as I was expecting. But in any case, I did get several reports here. You can read them yourself. Really just pieces of report, but that's okay sometimes. The GhostNet is not a perfect system, and you have to remember that we're using JS8 call, we're using these HF radio tools, these hobbyist tools, we're using them in a non-standard way. So our expectations have to be tempered somewhat. So in this case, I've got enough information here in these reports to Google it, and just research it, right? You're not going to get a full-blown news report through JS8 calls. Sometimes you're going to have little lines missing occasionally. Now there's for every problem there's a solution, but the solution for something like this increases the complexity and it reduces the number of people that can receive this sort of thing. So again, I'm constantly working on this, constantly trying to improve things, but these are the reports that we got for this week that I was able to kind of pick out. Dozens of heartbeats, dozens of check-ins saying, hey, I'm from this area, so on and so forth. I kind of leave these out just to kind of not clutter things up too much and to encourage people to, share some good information. You don't have to be a professional analyst to share some local news in your area that might be helpful for others. So again, awesome to see this kind of stuff. Hope that we can continue it on for as long as humanly possible. These are the sources for today. That's pretty much all I've got. Again, I'm working on a lot of content. This whole Trump incident has kind of put me back, set me back by a couple of weeks at least, with regards to the other content I'm working on. But I'm working through it, and we'll see how we can punch through it this week. So again, lots of things going on. Very busy world. I know that it's really easy to kind of be a little bit pessimistic, regarding what's kind of going on in the world, and just kind of generally the way things are going in the U.S. But, you know, better days are ahead, one way or the other. So it's not something that we should dwell on too much. We've got too much work to do to be focused on how negative things are. So that's the kind of line of thinking that I'm going forward and trying to use, because, really this is a great opportunity, especially this election cycle where everything's insane. Every single day is some new crazy, wacky story, right? It's really a good time to just kind of, self-reflect and figure out, what am I doing today to help other people out? What am I doing today to continue to do good work? And just keeping that kind of mindset, not getting too bogged down in all the bad stuff is probably a better move in the long run. So that's what I'm trying to do. I could talk more about that at some point, but for now, let's wrap things up and call it a day. And we will be back at it on Monday. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for all of your support, and we will see you next time. And as always, fight in the shade.